Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to pause your conversations for a moment. We're going to get tonight's programme underway. And so to introduce our first honoree, it is my absolute pleasure to turn to Carlo Messina, Chief Executive Officer of Intesa Sanpaolo and Director of the Foreign Policy Association.
Good evening, everyone. It is a great pleasure and a privilege to introduce my friend Larry Fink, founder, chairman and CEO of Blackrock. Larry is the most appropriate person to be recognized with this prestigious Foreign Policy Association's Corporate Social Responsibility Award this year. He is an inspiration in this field and a very important guide to the transition to a better world. I met Larry for the first time 7 years ago at the World Economic Forum in Davos, in the occasion of my first participation as a CEO. I was working on the business plan, and my goal was to turn an important Italian bank into a European champion for market capitalization and business model. The in-depth conversation I had with Larry in Davos reinforced my belief that wealth management, protection, asset management, insurance could be the cornerstone of Intesa Sanpaolo's future success. And since then, Intesa Sanpaolo has become a European champion, managing 1.2 trillion euro in customer financial assets. A leader is someone who can see how things can be improved and who guides people towards that better vision. This is exactly what Larry does. His annual letter to clients, stakeholders and CEO is tangible proof of this. Larry is changing the world vision, driving the market to an understanding of the importance of sustainability as part of any business. I believe this is a real game changer. He highlights issues that are fundamental in creating long-term value, issues such as corporate social responsibility, long-term strategy, climate change. Among his many recognitions, Larry was named one of the world's greatest leaders by Fortune, and for 14 consecutive years, Barron's has named him as one of the world's best CEOs. Larry is also a strong supporter of many foundations and serves on the board of prestigious institutions such as the New York University, the Museum of Modern Art, the Council on Foreign Relations, the International Rescue Committee, and the World Economic Forum. Blackrock, thanks to Larry's sound guidance, is a global leader in terms of investments and digital solutions. With more than $8.7 trillion in assets under management, it is the largest and most influential money manager in the world. Blackrock also defines leadership in ESG, sustainability, investment stewardship, transparency, and inclusion and diversity. Blackrock is a strategic and valuable supporter and partner of Intesa Sanpaolo. We share the same corporate values and commitment to sustainable finance. Larry's example, dedication, and advice are very important reference points both for me and the group I lead. Having Blackrock as a shareholder is also a measure of success for Intesa Sanpaolo. So Larry, thank you for everything you do to make the world, our world, a better place. And thank you for your constant commitment and dedication. It is a great honor to be your friend. I'm certain that thanks to your leadership, everyone will be able to do more and achieve great things for our society. Getting to know you over the years and working with you and your outstanding team have been a real honor. Congratulations, Larry.
Thank you, Carlo, for that lovely introduction. And now to present our next award, the Corporate Social Responsibility Award, I'd like to welcome back last year's recipient of the award. That's Jim Herbert, Chief Executive Officer of First Republic Bank.
Thank you, Vonnie. It is a real pleasure and an honor to return to the Foreign Policy Association and to present the Corporate Social Responsibility Award to Larry Fink, Chairman and CEO of Blackrock, the world's largest asset manager. Larry has helped to transform two industries. In the distant past, Larry was very influential in commercializing mortgage-backed securities. This significantly improved the efficiency of mortgage lending to the great benefit of American consumers. Over recent decades, since co-founding Blackrock with his partners, Larry has fundamentally altered the asset management business. He has put risk awareness at the heart of the industry, and he's broken down the walls between active and passive or index investing. Additionally, for almost a decade, Larry's CEO letters have articulated a forward-looking view of an improved capitalism, especially when it comes to the environment and to ESG investing in general. He's been a very public voice advocating that asset managers exercise a stronger role in influencing corporations towards their broader societal responsibilities. For his pioneering work encouraging firms to have a purpose beyond profit, it gives me great pleasure to present the Foreign Policy Association Corporate Social Responsibility Award to Larry Fink. Congratulations, Larry.
Thank you, Jim. And now a very special conversation between Larry Fink, Chairman of Blackrock, and Henry Fernandez, Chairman of the Foreign Policy Association and CEO and Chairman of MSCI.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Larry, welcome to the 2021 Foreign Policy Association virtual dinner. It is a real pleasure and a privilege to have you with us. I would like to congratulate you and Blackrock for receiving the FPA Corporate Social Responsibility Award for 2 years in a row now, which is totally unprecedented at the FPA. As chairman of the board of the FPA and on behalf of all of my colleagues at the institution, today, I'm also very delighted to be conferring upon you personally the FPA medal for your leadership in moving all of us towards a more sustainable, inclusive, and stakeholder-based capitalism in the world. Congratulations, Larry.
Well, thank you, Henry, and thank you for the FPA for this award.
So we'd like to ask you a few questions in our interview here today. So the first one, it's by beginning to talk about, to our audience, why your annual CEO letter has become so influential in the corporate and investment industry. I believe it is called the Fink effect in the industry. As the largest asset manager in the world, Blackrock is clearly one of the largest financial institutions in the world. Therefore, you have a very special seat at the table. Why have you chosen to use your platform to advocate for so much change in the world?
Well, thank you, Henry. And again, thank you to the FBA for this award. And hopefully we're all going to be enjoying dinner together. So the letters began 9 years ago. And they began because I thought there was an absence in the conversations that we have had in finance. I mean, finance is dominated by the TikTok of the daily markets. It's dominated about the ups and downs of the market. It's dominated about, the trading of the day. And the reality is 2/3 of our assets are retirement assets. And our, journey with our clients is a 20, 30, 40-year journey where the whole foundational long-termism is necessary. And so I began the letter with a concept that we got to change the narrative. We got to change the narrative. How do we work with the companies we invest with to create more durable profitability? How can we help them, position their company to create a better outcome? And so with that in mind, I began these letters. A letter to the clients we invest, the companies we invest with, but always on the focus as a fiduciary to the asset owners who we manage their money, their savings for. And so the journey began with this whole concept of long-termism, and quite frankly, there was no Fink effect. There was no effect. The first 5 years or 4 years of letters, maybe the conversation lasted about 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. But it began starting in 2017 when I really started focusing on the change in the world's attitude towards globalization. What does that mean? What does it mean for multinational companies? What does it mean for the global capital markets? What does it mean how we invest? So with the focus on what does this mean for the asset owners who we manage money for, the narrative became a little more expansive than just long-termism. And then I began really focusing on the concept of stakeholder capitalism. And I can't think of another year like 2020 where stakeholder capitalism was so important. Your employees first, making sure your employees are safe, and that we're focusing on their needs as we were working remotely, focusing on their mental health issues, working remotely and being isolated, focusing on our clients and the clients who are working remotely and are looking for connectivity. And so stakeholder capitalism to me became even more alive in 2020. And then through that process and through conversations, it became more and more clear as a capitalist, not as an environmentalist, that sustainability is becoming a major impact, and it's going to impact all our long-term portfolios. And when the idea and the concept that we're focusing on portfolios that are going to have a life of 20, 30 years, we better start focusing on things that will impact that portfolio. And climate change and transition risk became a very important feature. And it was through the narrative of my clients, our clients worldwide, where I became more impassioned about sustainability and the impact of portfolios. And it was very clear to me by the dialogues I had related to climate change. It was clear to me that we're going to see this tectonic shift in how we invest. We're going to see a shift in the way finance is focusing on issues like stakeholder capitalism, ESG, and sustainability. And as a young man who was at the beginning of the securitization market of mortgages and asset backs, I witnessed how technology changed that market in 1982, 83. And I look at sustainability and how technology and understanding and transparency is going to be changing that. And I believe it's going to be the biggest change in finance in the coming years. And what we're doing through my letters, I want companies to be more prepared, because I see more and more of our investors saying we want to shift our strategy. We don't want a traditional liability like an MSCI index or a S&P or all that. We're gonna need something that has more sustainability attributes, and this is why your organization is so focused on creating more sustainability, portfolios. But in that light, also, we see more and more companies are saying, and more individuals saying, I want to customize a portfolio. I want to have a real customized portfolio. But that's a reallocation of capital that I wrote about, and that's happening. And in 2020, we saw, $300+ billion of flows into sustainability funds and indexes, and that's just the beginning. And for those corporations who are not focused on it, who are not willing to be more transparent about their behaviors, they're going to have more and more reallocation of capital out of their stocks into different stocks. And that's happening. And you know that too from your vantage point at MSCI. This is a real transformation. And as a student of finance and being in this business 45 years, once finance understands a future problem, we bring that problem forward. That's the present value of an issue. And that's what's happening now. More and more investors worldwide, more and more regulators worldwide, and now more and more governments are saying this is an issue and we're going to have to address it. And through all those processes, we're seeing this real large shift in how we invest. And so my letters is really not to inform, to help management of companies, their board, to understand you need to move forward on this. You need to move forward fast on this. We're going to be patient capital with you, but in representing all our investors, all these retirees, we believe this is a very important component of how we should think on behalf of their portfolios. And we're going to be restructuring, their portfolios, but importantly, they're going to ask us to restructure their portfolio. So these companies need to move forward rapidly.
So Larry, at MSCI, we frequently talk about how most of the world runs, on the free enterprise system or capitalism. And a key component of capitalism is the free bottom-up allocation of capital.
Yes, totally.
And the global investment industry, which you are the leader of, basically represents a major industry in society, which is the channel of taking savings into productive investments that create economic growth and prosperity. Without that mechanism, there won't be a great deal of economic growth in the world, of that process of intermediating savings into investments.
Yes.
But also, as you have pointed out, that system is based on the incorporation of a great deal of information into prices, so that the assets get priced appropriately, and the proper allocation of capital. So that it's already creating an evolution of this capitalist system, because we're now incorporating purpose, ESG,
yes,
climate into pricing of assets and allocation of capital. So you are the nexus. You are one of the key nexus in that whole ecosystem to serve society better. So in your letter, you have consistently written about this link of profits and purpose in a free enterprise system. So when you think about the corporate entities, not just the investors, the corporate entities, in today's world, in that evolving system, what do you see in those entities as their purpose in society, what we call corporate purpose, and how do you define it, and how do you view them as a vehicle for more prosperity in the world?
I think it's very important that every company identifies their individual purpose. It's not for us to tell them what their purpose is. I mean, I spend a lot of time identifying what BlackRock's purpose is, but it's not for us to identify to its board, to its management team, what we believe their purpose is. What we are asking every company, and I've done this now related to their purpose now 4 or 5 years, we want them to identify what their purpose is. We want to be informed by what their purpose is. We may not agree with their purpose and vote accordingly, but it's not for us to identify what their purpose is. It's for what we're trying to get more and more companies to think about corporate purpose and corporate stakeholders and how they are focusing on all their stakeholders. And I was very pleased in 2019 when the Business Roundtable came around and changed its corporate identification, that corporate purpose is beyond just the stakeholder of their shareholders, but all the stakeholders. And so we're seeing a societal evolution change. And I think it's a great societal evolution. And I do believe in this world that is about deglobalization, which is a dominant theme at the moment, unfortunately. In that theme, we have to earn that license as a company to have an enterprise in every location with every community. In today's world of trying to attract the finest young people to join our firms, young people think differently than I did. All I cared about was getting a job and providing for my family. I think young people have a much deeper mission than I ever did. I'll put it there. And that mission is more of a societal mission. I think everybody is now focusing on those issues. So when you think about corporate purpose, I think, every company has to identify what their purpose is, and that is a mechanism to attract, or in many cases, detract young people going to that firm. If you have a unified group of employees who believe in your purpose and live that purpose every day, they are the great representatives to your clients. And your clients then believe in that purpose and you win more business. And if you then obviously with your employees, with your clients, and in all the communities where you work. And when I write about corporate purpose in the communities, it means, you have to prove that purpose in every community. That means you have to be Japanese in Japan and American in America and Mexican in Mexico and Italian in Italy. You have to be part of each society. And by doing that, you create more durable profitability by attracting the best and brightest young people, by being better connected to your community, better connected to your clients. It creates more lasting long-term profitability, and your ultimate, your preeminent stakeholder, your shareholders, your owners of your company, they're benefited by that. And we're seeing that more and more. So it's not for me to tell a company what their purpose is. And if I have to tell a company what their purpose is, I'm going to vote against that management team and that board, because they need to identify how they're moving forward. They need to be focused. They need to take accountability and responsibility of what their purpose is and how they're moving forward. And we all know, as you know, one of the epiphanies that I had when I began writing these letters, with a large percent of our assets, of the 8.7 trillion, approximately about 6 of it is index type of assets. That means we own a lot of bad companies, and we can't sell those shares because an index is full of good companies and bad companies, right, Henry? And so the epiphany was we own a lot of companies that need help. We can't sell the shares as a statement, but our power of our vote becomes so meaningful. And that is the foundational reason why I began writing those letters about long-termism. That is a foundational issue why I believe that our corporate stewardship team is really vital, and why we have the biggest investment of a corporate stewardship team of any investment firm in the world. And I think the closest competitor has like a third of the staff that we have. And we invested a lot of people, time. Now we're investing a lot of time in analytics. And now we're doing the same thing because we believe in sustainability so much, just like MSCI is. We're investing huge sums of money on building better analytics. So as you frame the question related to climate risk, we want to identify what climate risk means to that mortgage-backed security, what climate risk means to that commercial mortgage-backed security. We want to understand what climate risk means for that municipality. So we're overlaying, right now on behalf of our investors, we're overlaying already, imaging technology, showing how different degrees of climate change will impact. What does it mean for rising temperatures, rising water, how that physical impact is. And now we are spending a lot of time trying to judge and understand transition risk. That is a lot harder. Physical climate risk is pretty easy to measure. You may not agree with the algorithm or the model, but if the model is correct, you could see the real physical impact. But on the transition issue, and that's why we're asking all these companies to report under SASB and TCFD. So we have more granularity at the company level. And obviously that's what you've been in charge with at MSC for years too.
So let's elaborate a little bit on climate change, Larry. The global pandemic has clearly made us realize how interconnected and interdependent world we live in. One more time, it's made us aware of that. We learned this big time in the financial crisis, but even more so. But it's now made us realize how fragile the world is.
Yes.
And it's made us much more aware of that growing global existential threat of climate change.
Yes.
You have spoken a great deal about this, and obviously have said to investors, climate risk is investment risk, not just something remotely related to them. For this risk to be managed, to be mitigated, there has to be a significant mindset shift in the investment industry as providers of capital and in corporations as users of capital.
Yes.
So you are at the forefront of trying to change the mindset. So what opportunities and what challenges are you facing in trying to achieve that goal?
So, Henry, I actually believe between the work that you're doing and other companies in Blackrock, I think we're going to be moving public companies forward very rapidly. I believe through more transparency, public companies are going to move very rapidly, at least in scope one of TCFD, what they're doing and their carbon footprint, how they're moving forward. And this is one thing that I've, in all my conversations with regulators worldwide, with policymakers worldwide, if we're only going to ask public companies to move forward on this, we're not going to achieve a net zero world. If we truly want to go to a net zero world, and public companies are not going to be able to understand their scope 2 and 3 unless society asks all society to be moving forward. The greatest risk we have in society right now is we're going to be pushing rapidly public companies to move rapidly. Some public company is going to say, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go private. And then I don't have this problem. And you're seeing evidence of this now. And maybe I'm at fault or maybe you're at fault, but we're seeing a lot of companies sell their worst assets that we may object to. And they're selling them to a private equity firm that's somewhere located in Southeast Asia. If the objective of the world is to be a net zero world, we're not changing the carbon footprint at all. We're moving it from a transparent public company to a private company. And there lies the policy issues that have to be addressed. And this is a vital issue. We can't have this arbitrage between public and private companies. And the path we're on, unless society says this is important across society, we're going down that path. And in all the conversations I have as governments get prepared for COP26, this is to me what I'm trying to shake everybody and saying, finance for public companies are catching on really quickly. More and more companies are going to be reporting under TCFD and SASB. They're going to be better companies for that. They're going to move more rapidly towards a net carbon zero future. They're going to identify how they're moving forward. They're going to make these changes. But if they're going to make the changes by just selling off assets to private enterprises, they may look better, but society doesn't change at all. And so if we had to talk about real public policy has to be public policy for all of society, not the convenience of public companies. And there lies the issue. I actually believe capitalism in public companies is further along than governments and society. And it's very easy for the NGOs to attack a public company. But I don't hear any NGOs saying we need this for all society. We need this for all private companies. We need to do this together. And so if we, and one of the solutions will be, as we are trying to get to a net carbon zero, maybe we need to have these public companies that are in hydrocarbons or other things, that they own the IO stream of the declining hydrocarbons, but they don't sell it. And they create a declining trust as they move forward, that we work together as society. This is going to require long-term policy decisions. And unfortunately, democracies worldwide have a hard time focusing on long-term policy. And I can't think of an area, as you said, related to this issue of climate change, where we need governments coming together. And this is why the COP26 is going to be really important. Governments coming together, very importantly, and focusing on creating a real taxonomy that we could all govern. Right now, because we have no real taxonomy, I don't know how we're going to get to scope 2 and 3, because there's no taxonomy to measure. And so with that in mind, in all my conversation with the regulators saying, if you're going to be pushed forward, all the companies towards this effort, we're going to have safe harbors, because how can we judge one company when we don't have an agreeable taxonomy to measure? And you have a difference already between the US and Europe. Europe is more principle-based, in their accounting treatment versus we're much more, binary approach. Where are we going to go with this? How are we going to do it? And whatever approach we take, it has to be encompassing all of society. And that's what I think you and I and other leaders can talk about. I think we're moving very rapidly in the work with the MSCI is doing, what BlackRock's doing, other companies are moving, that we're going to get the public companies to be moving. We're getting better disclosures by more and more companies. There's huge increases in SASB reporting and TCFD reporting. But if we truly want to have a society that's moving forward, if we want to have a society that really is a net zero society, then we need a society to encompass it in its totality, not just with public companies.
I think you've identified a key issue, which is the old free rider problem. Right? And the free rider problem is not only the one riding free, but it's also the others saying, I don't want to act upon because of the jealousy of the people that are benefiting from it. And we see that between countries. In the US, people say, we're not going to do anything unless China does it, right? Or India does it. and obviously, in the world, I agree with you. The corporate world and the investment world is actually subject to a significant amount of market-based mechanisms to influence direction. And then the private companies or the private institutions, universities, religious entities, media, and all of that, that's not as rigorous. So I, like you, look forward very much to the COP26. I think it's a pivotal year to make progress, and perhaps the hope is that we can make the Glasgow meeting, as big or bigger than Paris, on 2015.
And if we're right about the vaccinations and the ability to have more and more people vaccinated by that time, it could be a real coming out because we all could be together. It probably is going to become one of the first essential governmental meetings with industry coming together in a year and a half.
That will make it even more successful, I would think. So I will be remiss to have you here among us and not to ask you about your views on the global economy and the global markets, sitting where you sit from the vantage point. So economic activity around the world is still weak. Mm-hmm. The global markets have been ebullient, although there is a little bit of a rotation, happening today, and nervousness about inflation. Politically, obviously, we have a new U.S. administration that is focusing on re-engaging with the world, mm-hmm. and trying to gather the forces of other countries to solve a lot of these problems. So, what are your views right now on the global economic recovery, the trajectory of global markets, and the prospects for perhaps continued globalization of lack or globalization, as you said before?
Well, long term, I'm very bullish. I believe the learnings, the lessons we have from COVID are extraordinary. I think we truncated technology transformations that could have been 10 years into one. How we work, how we live, how we are educated, how we consume information, how we consume products, how we are dealing with our medical issues now. It's all been transformed, and this is a resiliency of humanity. Just the fact that we were able to create vaccinations in 10 months. The fastest vaccination that was ever created was mumps in 4 years. I mean, these are the wonders of humanity that we're able to really move forward. Now, the problem with this recession, more than most recessions, this has been a very uneven recession, where, as you said, ebullient parts of the economy have done well. A lot of financial institutions, technology firms have had great years in 2020 and looks like 2021. Companies like the Home Depots have done fantastically well as more and more people have stayed at home and they wanted to fix up their homes. And yet 20, 30, 40% of the economy has been left behind because we don't aggregate as human beings. So hospitality, hotels, conventions, education, many things that have been really harmed. And unfortunately, that's why this, we have probably more unevenness and inequalities than ever before, because of the type of recession we had. Because a recession was only in this 40%, in the 60%, it was extraordinarily strong, and so we've never seen this unevenness. And hopefully, the fiscal stimulus that we're having now is going to help those who have been left behind, the financial ability to bridge as we become more vaccinated, we open up more and more parts of our society, as we go from 25 to 50% of our restaurant openings to 75 to 100, and we have more normalization. Because of the fiscal stimulus, we're going to have an extraordinary growth year. The bigger question will be, and this is my conversations with many of the people in America, will this type of stimulus create elongated growth? Because this deficits, and that's what the inflation fear is in the marketplace, are extraordinarily large. Deficits can be managed if we have above trend growth. But if we go back after this extraordinary burst of economic activity back to a 2% growth rate as a country, I'm talking about the US specifically, then the deficits are going to matter. And this inflation fear and rising interest rates is going to be a dominant conversation we're going to have for years and years to come. But if we could find, and this is why I would have loved to see a much more component of this stimulus package on infrastructure, which is much more elongated growth patterns through infrastructure investing. But capitalism proved out to be fantastic in 2020. Technology transformations, how we live and how we work. I know more people who refuse to be focused on how to live in this internet-based world, and almost every person I know has learned to do this, and they actually enjoy it. Even in the financial services industry, you used to have financial advisors who used to visit their clients in person. Now you can get more data information via the web. You can do more and more things together. And so you have to be bullish. You have to be bullish over the long run. 2, the opportunities we have long-term on transition. Everyone talks about transition risk. I think there's trillions of dollars to invest to prepare our society, trillions of dollars to build better infrastructure. I mean, we saw in the United States the problems in the power grid of Texas. Maybe this is the time we really bring in a national policy towards energy. At the same time, rebuild that power grid with more sustainability, backstopped by hydrocarbons, because what we learned in Texas, you just can't rely on sustainability when you have that type of freakish or more constant. Maybe it's going to be more reoccurring weather patterns, or they're going to, let's be clear, we have the technology to have the wind turbines operate in cold and frigid weather. It was not designed in Texas for that. And so to me, that's a wake-up call, and we're going to have to retrofit all the turbines like we have in the North Sea with the wind turbines. They can tolerate cold and freakish weather and wind and ice and all that. So there's much to be learned about it, but let's be clear, 2020, with all the pain and suffering and all the deaths because of this virus, the advancement of technology, the speed in which we now developed a whole new technology for vaccinations, this is transforming society and transforming us, and we're going to be able to be more protective. I mean, I was talking to the CEOs of of Moderna and Pfizer, and with their new technology of mRNA, and other companies are all going to go that way too, by the way, we're going to have in the near future vaccinations for the seasonal flu that's only about a 40%, 50% effectiveness, probably to 80, 90 or more. And so you think about the transformation we could do for health. You think about the transformation of data and information. I mean, all these things give me just such great optimism, despite all the negativity, that you want to be invested in the markets. You want to be invested in the markets for the long term. We can talk about asset allocation all day long. How much should you be investing outside the United States? How much in China, which is not, we don't want to talk about it here in the United States, but we should recognize that China was the #1 destination for foreign capital in 2020. As the second largest economy, the average investor worldwide, as you know, is underinvested in China. And so there are many things we could talk about. And I could spend the rest of all day long talking about all the negatives. But it's through that conversation of negativity that we mitigate negativity. Through that conversation of issues, we find solutions. And this is why I've been a resolute optimist. When I am not optimistic about the future of markets is when we don't talk about anything. And I will just end this on a little negativity. We as a society do not spend enough time talking about the silent crisis of retirement. And as the largest retirement manager in the world, we see huge segments of society that have no retirement. And let me just end one last note. The reason why the United States needed to spend more money on fiscal stimulus than other countries, because we're a country of optimism. And through that optimism, we were less prepared for this pandemic because we are not a country of savers. Whereas in Japan and China and Europe, they're much broader savings. And so they had more, we call that rainy day fund. And I think the statistic that was commonly said a year ago that the average American only has $400 of emergency savings. Okay, that's not a problem if things go well and we're bullish on the world and the future. That's not a good thing if we have a pandemic, and and that's one of the reasons why I believe the United States needed to do a larger fiscal stimulus, and to bridge those people who were hurt. But let's be clear: there's a lot to be optimistic, but we can't be narrow-minded. There is a lot of problems in society, whether it's our infrastructure or power grid. The inequalities that this recession created have been tragic, and we need to create a more balanced society, and we need to have much more inclusive capitalism.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for a lot of your wise words and perspectives and insights. You started Blackrock, I think it was 1988, if I remember correctly.
I had more hair than Henry. I think you did too, right?
I did a lot more than you have to. I have a lot less than you have today, and we both came from the mortgage business, so that was also a good tribute to the mortgage industry, right? And you clearly have built a phenomenal firm, with being the largest asset management company in the world. You and your team, has achieved a lot, incredibly proud of. We are very pleased and proud of our partnership together. You seem more energized than ever. We wish you a great deal of success, and luck. And we need you, in that pivotal seat of changing the nature of the investment industry, the corporate world, the enhancement of this great system of free enterprise that has served us well. And we thank you a great deal for this period of interview with our audience. And we thank you and congratulate you for the award and the medal.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you, the Foreign Policy Association. It's an honor, and let me give everybody a virtual hug.
Good evening. I am Sana Sabag, Vice Chair of the Foreign Policy Association. It is a pleasure to introduce Erica James, Dean of the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Dean James has dedicated her life to improving academic and corporate environments. Prior to her appointment at the Wharton School, Dean James was at the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business, where she established their Women's Leadership Program, and at Emory University's Business School, where she redesigned the undergraduate business curriculum. At the Wharton School, Dean James is focusing her efforts on fostering an environment that emphasizes an understanding of the impact of business on society. In addition to corporate social responsibility, Dean James has researched high-profile leadership challenges in times of crisis. These challenges range from the devastation that was caused by Hurricane Katrina to the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Through decades of research into crisis leadership, Dean James is an expert at instilling trust within organizations and making decisions under pressure. Given the many challenges we face today, ranging from an unprecedented public health crisis to climate change, the Wharton School is fortunate to have Dean Erica James leading the way. I wish Dean James enormous success in all her endeavors, and I look forward to hearing her remarks this evening.
And now to present the Foreign Policy Association Medal, I would like to welcome Kay Maxwell, Chair of Off the Record and a Director of the Foreign Policy Association.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to present the Foreign Policy Association Medal to Dean Erica James. Dean James, a trained organizational psychologist and a leading expert on crisis leadership, was the first woman to be appointed dean in Wharton's 139-year history. With a depth of experience in crisis management, there was perhaps no one more qualified to lead Wharton through the public health and societal justice challenges of the past year. Toward the goal of expanding the accessibility of Wharton around the world, Dean James has already instituted plans to amend recruitment, hiring, and community engagement practices. On campus, Dean James has been fostering an academic and business environment that challenges future business leaders to tackle tomorrow's greatest societal challenges, ranging from climate change to accessible healthcare. It is my pleasure to present the Foreign Policy Medal to Dean Erica James.
Good evening. I'm humbled to be in the company of this prestigious group and to be joined by my fellow recipients, Larry Fink and Mark Tucker. I am grateful to the Foreign Policy Association for recognizing me with the Foreign Policy Association Medal, and I will continue to strive to live up to the honor and expectations of the holders of this award. I would like to especially thank Sana and Kay for their kind words in making tonight's introduction. It has been an honor for me to serve in various leadership roles in higher education and in business education in particular. Pursuant to the mission of the FPA, I have sought to leverage the influence of business schools to broaden our educational mission to prepare future generations of students and executive learners, not only for the business contributions they will make, but for the value that their education will have in making a difference in the world writ large. As the tenets of business and capitalism undergird many of the world's most successful economies, their impact is clear and long-standing. And yet, as has been revealed most poignantly in recent months, in its current form, capitalism has served some in our communities, but not others, leaving a growing and glaring divide that impedes our progress as a nation. Inequitable distribution of resources and impediments to life-sustaining basic needs such as healthy food, affordable healthcare, livable housing conditions in safe neighborhoods, and access to capital that will allow entrepreneurial and small business proliferation in communities around the world are all necessary preconditions for manifesting human potential. That these things do not yet exist more robustly has resulted in underserved and, in too many cases, impoverished neighborhoods, therefore undermining the identification of talent as well as the nation's ability to prosper. Business schools have an important role to play in enhancing the opportunity of capitalism. As professional schools within higher educational institutions, our fundamental responsibilities are twofold. First, we must engage in the scientific method to identify the underlying causes of today's problems and generate the solutions for tomorrow's opportunities. The research of business school faculty must be validated by the standards and metrics of the academy, and it is this validation process that provides a level of credibility that gives us more confidence than what may be the case from other organizations. Second, our data and conclusions must also be widely disseminated to reach the current and future organizations and institutions that need them to affect policy, organizational decisions, and economies around the world. As part of that educational mission, it is increasingly necessary to engage across disciplines so that future managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs learn to engage in complex reasoning that brings together important perspectives and insights from a variety of sources. As an ardent believer in the promise of capitalism, I am also keenly aware of the criticisms that capitalism has garnered and the growing inequities that manifest in the US and around the world when there are barriers to participate in the capitalist system. I suspect that I am joined by most of you in the belief that the answer is not to throw out the fundamental tenets of capitalism, but to promote their evolution to become more reflective of the needs and opportunities in a modern society. Importantly, we can focus on creating systems that allow for a greater participation in the economic system that creates wealth for individuals and communities, and ensuring the provision of resources like education is accessible to all. To this last point, not every young person needs a degree from the Wharton School, but Wharton can use its largesse to democratize business education in ways that allow people access to business content and information that meets their specific needs. Through programs targeted to high school students or partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities that don't have business schools, and even by academically supporting budding entrepreneurs and small business owners that are the lifeblood of many communities. I believe strongly that business schools have a responsibility to share information and knowledge that can facilitate participation in a capitalistic economy. This is the work that I seek to do at Wharton, and in doing so, I hope that we are making a small but positive difference in creating more equitable participation in our great nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica, for those illuminating remarks. We look forward to your continued leadership at the Wharton School. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce another past recipient of the FPA Corporate Social Responsibility Award, John Waldron, President and Chief Operating Officer of Goldman Sachs.
Thank you, Vonnie. I am honored to join you all this evening to introduce Mark Tucker. Mark is the Group Chairman of HSBC Holdings, one of the world's largest financial services groups, and the Chairman of the Discovery Group of South Africa, one of the largest financial services groups based in Africa. Mark has spent over 35 years in the financial services industry. His career has been a truly global one, with roles across Asia, Africa, the US, and the United Kingdom, including over 25 years based in Hong Kong. Mark has held a number of leadership positions in financial services, including Chairman, Chief Executive, and President of AIA Group, now the largest life insurance company in the world, and Group Chief Executive of Prudential plc. Mark has also served on the court of the Bank of England. Mark and I know each other from his time serving ably on the board of Goldman Sachs. In Asia, the Americas, and in Britain, as well as in Europe, Mark is an active participant in the formation of public policy. He chairs the Citi UK and the UK Multinational Chairman's Group and serves as a member of the UK Investment Council and the Prime Minister's Building Back Better Business Council. Additionally, Mark is a member of the Trade Finance Advisory Group of the International Chamber of Commerce and the UK Department of Trade's Financial Services Trade Advisory Group. With quiet determination, often in the face of very strong headwinds, he has made the case for an economically connected world where, despite political differences, we remain engaged to grow our common economic well-being. Mark is also an active patron of the arts and higher education institutions. He is a member of the advisory board of the British Museum, an associate professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and a director of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Mark, let me offer many congratulations on this award and thank you for your continued leadership in the global financial services community. I'll now turn it back over to you, Vonnie.
Thank you, John. And now to present the FPA Corporate Social Responsibility Award, I would like to welcome Tom Michaud, a director of the Foreign Policy Association and President and Chief Executive Officer of Keefe, Bruyette and Woods.
Thank you, Bonnie. It is my pleasure to present this year's Foreign Policy Association Corporate Social Responsibility Award to Mark Tucker, Group Chairman of HSBC Holdings. Since Mark was appointed Group Chairman in 2017, he has worked assiduously to lead HSBC in reaching their sustainable development goals. HSBC is both inspiring and financing innovation in climate change solutions around the globe. While currently holding awards for Best Bank for Sustainable Finance in Asia, Western Europe, and the Middle East, HSBC also looks to reform from within. They themselves aim to reach net zero emission and have committed to purchasing 100% of their electricity from renewable sources by 2030. Throughout his career, Mark has emphasized the similarities in shared values and future goals among companies to help them see that investment in sustainable infrastructure is the most viable way to ensure success. HSBC recognizes that their role in aiding the worldwide fight against climate change is to make clean tech innovation, sustainable infrastructure, and nature-based solutions commercially viable. Very, very important. This requires investment, governance, and commitment. HSBC aims to provide between $750 billion and $1 trillion in decarbonizing financing and investment over the next 10 years. HSBC is committed to donate $100 million between now and 2050 to bring climate change innovations to commercial scale. As members of the RE100 initiative, a global initiative that brings together the world's most influential businesses committed to using 100% renewable energy, and staunch supporters of the Paris Climate Agreement, HSBC is at the forefront of companies investing in a better tomorrow for us all. I am delighted to present the Corporate Social Responsibility Award to Mark Tucker. Mark, congratulations.
Thank you, John and Tom, and thank you to the Foreign Policy Association for this honor. I would like to start by congratulating Larry and Erica, both highly deserving recipients. This award is an acknowledgement of the importance of building a business for the long term, developing enduring relationships with our stakeholders, and fulfilling a purpose that goes beyond making profits. This has been part of the ethos at HSBC for 156 years. We have thrived because we have served the long-term interest of our customers, our investors, and the communities and markets where we have been present. Today, just like all businesses, our societal obligations are clearer than ever. It is also more important than ever that we live up to them. Our obligations have been particularly evident over the last year, when we have all faced social and economic upheaval on a scale unseen in living memory. As a direct consequence, the need to build back better has come to the fore, and the importance of protecting the planet has become even more widely appreciated. In accepting this award, I would like to offer a few brief thoughts on the pandemic and the need to build back better, including addressing climate change. Starting with the COVID crisis. The financial services industry as a whole has really stepped up over the last year. And like other banks, HSBC has introduced payment relief measures as part of government-backed programs and our own schemes to help businesses, families, and individuals through the difficulties they have faced. In total, we have provided more than $26 billion of relief to our personal customers and more than $52 billion to our wholesale customers. We have also, during this period, arranged more than $1.9 trillion of loan, debt, and equity financing to help keep capital flowing. We did all of this while our own people dealt with the transition to working from home and had to combine their work with their caring responsibilities. I'm enormously proud of the professionalism, dedication, and energy that my colleagues demonstrated and continue to demonstrate day in and day out. The pandemic reminded us about the fragility of our world and prompted an important debate about the need to transform our economies and societies. And as I mentioned earlier, the phrase that has become popular is building back better. It really captures the opportunity we have to set the global economy on a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient path. There are a number of ways that we can support this, from being truly diverse and inclusive across our workforce to leading the global transition to a low-carbon economy and becoming a net zero bank that ensures a greater proportion of our capital is allocated mindful of climate-related risks. While the pandemic has been a wake-up call for all of us, a climate crisis would have been a much more severe and permanent effect on the planet. HSBC has been a global leader in sustainable finance for around a decade. We know we can go further, which is why we have set a new climate ambition to become a net zero bank by 2050. The societal rationale for our commitment to net zero needs little explanation. And there is also a commercial reality in the business opportunity to finance that transition. We will therefore help all our customers to progressively decarbonize while supporting new, lower carbon technology to emerge. This is the most significant contribution that HSBC can make to the fight against global warming and the most effective way to help the global economy to reach net zero. Governments also have a major role to play. If you look across the three major economic blocs, the US, the EU, and Asia, while there's plenty to disagree on, they must unite in their commitment to tackle climate change. Each will play a crucial role in driving progress this year. Having rejoined the Paris Agreement, the US can reaffirm its global leadership credentials. The EU, through its pioneering work on international standards, and with COP26 due to take place in Glasgow in November, and Asia, with China, Japan, and South Korea, having set net zero targets of their own, with Asian economies rebounding most strongly from the COVID crisis. So to conclude, we are clearly still in the midst of difficult and challenging times, but the adversity we faced as individuals and as a society has focused minds on what's really important. That is supporting those who need our help, transforming our economies, and protecting the planet. This should give us hope that we can deliver the change we need and build a more sustainable and prosperous world. We at HSBC are excited to be playing our part in that. Thank you once again for this prestigious award.
Thank you, Mark. Well, that concludes the official and formal part of tonight's evening, but I would like to say that we'll all be in our individual rooms to continue the conversation for another short while. Please do stay safe. And once again, thank you all for your continued support of this magnificent organization. It is corporate sponsors like you that help keep our conversations going. We very much look forward to doing this again in person very, very soon. For now, on behalf of the Foreign Policy Association, the chairman and all of the staff and the board, please stay safe and see you next time.